again to our show that is called Real Shame. It's a movie. It's a movie. It's not a movie. It's a show.
Should be a movie.
It should be a movie. We'd have a lot less episodes if it was a movie. It's a show where we watch movies from our movie list of shame or movie blind spots, basically movies we should have seen that we're fixing that for you right now. My name's Adam.
My name is Andy.
And earlier in the week, Andy chose a movie that I have never seen about the Adirondacks.
Klondike Gold Rush. What would you do for a Klondike bar? Klondike Gold Rush.
Klondike Gold Rush. And he wanted to pair it with another movie that takes place around the same area. And that movie is called
The Call of the Wild from 1935. In Alaska at the turn of the 20th century, two men and an unruly dog set out to find a gold hoard. And they encounter a young woman whose husband's fate is uncertain. In The Call of the Wild.
Name was Blake. Martin Blake. He had red whiskers and he was a little blind in his off limb.
Oh, yeah, I remember. He was cracked. Told everybody he'd found a rich lode.
That's the guy. Well, he got sick on the trail, see? He was coming to Dawson City to file his claim. He wrote a letter to his son, John Blake, in San Francisco. He had a note on the envelope that said if anything happened to him, the letter should be mailed. Well, his number was up, so the letter was mailed.
And you looked inside to be sure that everything was neat and in order.
But there wasn't much of a letter. It was mostly a map.
You made a copy?
As I'm coming to the backstretch with the pencil, I feel the long arm of John Law on my shoulder.
Did they take the copy away from you?
No.
And you still have it?
No again.
Well, what'd you do with it?
I ate it. Oh. When that map started to digest, you'll see, it sort of went to my head, went to my brain. So while I'm sitting up there in the booby hatch, I made a copy of it from memory.
So The Call of the Wild was directed by William Wellman. He directed quite a number of films, but his most noteworthy films, of course, opinions may vary, but to me, his most noteworthy films are The Public Enemy with Jimmy Cagney,
A Star is Born. Washington.
No.
A Star is Born with Lady Gaga.
A Star is Born with Frederick March and Janet Gaynor. Nothing Sacred with Carole Lombard, who was married at one point to Clark Gable, who's in this movie, Call of the Wild. And one of my favorites, The Oxbow Incident with Henry Fonda. Love that movie. Good Western.
Never heard of it.
Written by Leonard Praskins and Gene Fowler. Gene Fowler had actually worked on 20th Century, which is another movie that Carole Lombard was in. And he also worked on White Fang, which is adapted from a novel by Jack London, as is The Call of the Wild. The novel by Jack London, The Call of the Wild, that is, not White Fang, was written in 1903. And I've never read the novel. Really? I've never seen this movie. I've actually never seen any adaptation of Call of the Wild, and there are a few. So I was completely blind. I know you've never seen this, but I've never seen this either.
They made me they made me read Call of the Wild in 5th or 6th grade.
I don't think I was ever, if I was assigned it, I didn't read it, but I don't think I was ever assigned it. So I was not familiar with the story. And I actually, after I watched this movie, I kind of read a synopsis of the movie. They're not close. Yep. But this movie stars Mr. Clark Gable as Jack Thornton. Clark Gable had a great year in 1935. He had a few movies that came out. Obviously, this was one. Another one that came out in 1935 for him was Mutiny on the Bounty, where he plays Fletcher Christian to Charles Lawton's Captain Bligh. And in, I think, February of this year, so this movie came out in August, I think in February of this year, he won the Academy Award for a movie he did in 1934, directed by Frank Capra and starring himself and Claudette Colbert, called It Happened One Night, which is still today a classic and popular kind of screwball comedy. Loretta Young plays the woman in question of this movie, Claire Blake. Jack Oakey is Clark Gable's partner. He plays Shorty Houlihan. And there's a bit of a Chaplin connection. We did Chaplin movie on Monday. Shorty appears in the movie The Great Dictator and was apparently nominated for an Academy Award for that film, although he did not win. Now, here's one thing I read when I was looking at the trivia of this movie. And again, I know IMDb trivia it's not always to be believed.
It varies.
But Jack Oakey, that plays Shorty, was apparently fairly hearing impaired, according to the trivia on IMDb. Now, it says nothing about him being hearing impaired on the Wikipedia page for him, although in the discussion for that page, so the discussion is kind of like the editors of that page, like, should we include this? Somebody does mention the fact that, hey, I heard this guy was hearing impaired, should we put that on the page? But as of now, it's not included on this Wikipedia page. But I did use other parts of the internet,
other means
of the internet to try and find out, was he actually hearing impaired? And it seems like they all kind of came from the same source. But I don't know, again, I still don't know how reliable it was. But if it is to be believed, he was hearing impaired to the point where he had to he wasn't completely deaf, but he had to read lips and stuff like that, if that is to be believed. And if so, I'm impressed because I had no clue that the guy was hearing impaired, if he actually was hearing impaired.
He kind of had his own shtick in this movie, and he really, like, it always cut to him and he'd do something. Like, he didn't interact a whole lot, so I could kind of see that. But I'm with you. Not to take away, I would be, and really, I'd be really impressed.
Yeah, and I mean, he's just not that big of a name actor to, I guess, really have a lot of information about him. Mm-hmm. So, maybe he was hearing impaired, maybe he wasn't. But if he was, I'm suitably impressed because I could never tell after watching this film. Reginald Owen plays basically the villain of the movie. He's Mr. Smith with his glasses.
Agent Smith,
yes. And Buck, the dog, apparently plays himself. Now, one thing about this movie is to article or not to article. Sometimes it has THE, and sometimes it's just Call of the Wild. Sometimes it's The Call of the Wild. But on screen, the credits say The Call of the Wild.
Yeah, you and me are...
Well, it's listed on IMDb as just Call of the Wild. No THE, no article. But on the credits itself of the movie, what's on screen says The Call of the Wild. So I'm calling it The Call of the Wild. All right. Anyway, as I said, this is a movie I've never seen. I know it's a movie you've never seen, but it's your week.
It is.
And you apparently read the novel.
I did. I don't remember anything about it.
I was going to say. But I guess, what did you know other than your vague recollection of the novel about this movie, if anything?
Yeah, so I remember reading the Jack London novel when I was a kid and really, really liking it. I don't know if I would like it nowadays because I think bad things happen to the dogs.
Yeah, there's some cruel things.
We know how I feel about that these days. I've become a softie in my older age. And while I was watching this movie, I was in constant fear of like something bad happening to the animals, like them dying, like even if it's fake, but them dying on screen and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
and I guess,
if it was up to Mr. Smith, they'd be dying. He wants to shoot every dog alive, right?
And he'll pay a lot of money for it.
Yeah, he will pay a lot of money.
It's also interesting. I want to jump ahead of that. Yeah. He's paying $1,000, a lot of money. I'm sure back then, a lot of money now. But when they walked into the town, did you see how expensive things were? It's like normal everyday prices, like haircuts, like $10. I'm like, that's how much we pay for haircuts nowadays.
They even make a joke. They said there's a line about that, how expensive everything is. Yeah.
But it was just interesting. Like, it's like steak dinner, $20 is like, that sounds about right, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you expect to watch a movie like that and see like steak dinner.
10 cents.
Yeah, exactly. 50 cents or something like that. But yeah, the prices were exorbitant. Yes, I agree. But I think just because it's like you pay it or screw you, right? I mean, this is all that's around for miles, right? So you can't eat anywhere else. So screw you.
So I like this movie a lot. Clark Gable's awesome. Like, I think I'm just like a fan of his. He just oozes charisma and all that kind of stuff. And well,
there's a reason why he was chosen to play Rhett Butler a few years later in Gone with the Wind. Yeah,
and even though like some of the stuff like with Buck, I don't like because just being an animal lover, like him running away and stuff, not him wanting to get hurt and all that kind of stuff. But I think he had great chemistry with the dog too, which is awesome. Yeah, and it works well for this movie. Overall, I really like this movie. I will say, though, once they get to that cabin, the movie just, like, screeches to a halt for me. Like, it's really interesting, like, them, meeting up. He's in the bar. He meets his old friend that just gets out of jail. Then they kind of go on this journey because he opened the mail, so they know, like, about this, this land where they can
get... And then he ate the map.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't get in trouble.
And they know about this land where there's a bunch of gold and all that kind of stuff. And on the way, they run into, was it Loretta? Yeah, Claire.
Young,
Claire Blake. The character there. And they kind of go along with her. And she's kind of tagging along. I mean, they basically force her to come along. Because, all that kind of stuff. It's really, really interesting. But, man, when they get to that cabin, it's just like... I'm like, okay, like, I'm just waiting for the movie to pick up its pace again. It just felt like it lost a lot of momentum. And that's like I feel like it's the last 40 minutes of the movie, like 30, 40 minutes. And I just feel like it does the movie disservice because it just really stops for me there, and there is some action that kind of happens, especially when Reginald's character comes back and all that kind of stuff. But I just really wish that cabin stuff was more minimized, and we had more, with the dog sled on the, out in the Yukon, and then that kind of stuff. So overall, really liked it. Clark Gable's awesome. Just the cabin stuff just really brought the movie to a screeching halt for me, and I don't think it really recovered after that, in my eyes. So that's kind of where I landed on Call of the Wild. Your first time seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think about? Did you know anything going into it?
No.
What did you think about the Call of the Wild?
Yeah, I mean, I picked this movie again just because it also takes place around the Klondike Gold Rush, just like the Gold Rush. So I figured it would be good, and also it gave me and you both a chance to watch this movie for the first time. I mean, I've seen Clark Gable in other things, obviously, but I've never seen this movie, and I agree with you. I think Clark Gable is just a cool dude on screen. Good looking, rugged guy. I mean, again, I agree, 100%. He oozes charisma.
Yeah, I wrote. I could watch hours and hours of Clark Gable.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. Yeah. Absolutely. I would say I did not really like this movie overall, and it's for the reasons pretty much that you said. I think I'm not as lenient maybe on the movie because I wanted way more adventure, way more kind of fun things to happen. And yes, when they get to the cabin, it's drags and drags and drags. I feel like it's just, if this movie, because the setup of it is awesome. These two guys, and I like his sidekick. I like Shorty Houlihan. I think he's funny. He's a little loud and obnoxious, but he's funny. He has some good funny lines.
I like loud, obnoxious people.
Yeah, and I love the dog. And all that stuff is cool, and it's just a great setup for an adventure. Hey, I saw this map. I can kind of reconstruct it in my memory. It's not perfect, so we're gonna have some of this kind of thing. Let's go find this gold.
Man who would
awesome.
be king.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right, and that's kind of what I thought of. It's like, okay, these two guys are gonna go out into this treacherous territory. And obviously, in case of the man who would be king, they're like looking to loot everything as well. Yeah, so it is similar, but. I think The Man Who Would Be King, and another movie that came out a few years after this, actually 1939, Gunga Din. I feel like has way more adventure than this movie. I feel like this movie just kind of dragged a lot. And despite the fact that I like all the leads, I thought they were all good. Loretta Young is good when she comes into the picture, but it just does not have enough adventure for me. Like, I really wanted more stuff to happen. And I realize it's not going to be like a Tony Scott movie or something like that, Shades of Next Week. It's not going to be super fast-paced and super kinetic editing or anything like that. I get it. But even, like I say, with a movie like Gunga Din, which is also from the 1930s, there's plenty of action. Yeah. So they could have had plenty more action.
They could have had more natural obstacles in the way. Like, we had the river.
Absolutely.
But, the river could have been more treacherous. Yep. There could have been, like, we saw with 10 years earlier with Charlie Chaplin, with, like, cliffs and stuff. Yep. Like, there could, like, in wildlife, like, there could be more natural treacherous things on their journey that would be more interesting, and then have the end being them getting to the cabin, not the end being after they get the cabin, then Shorty comes back like a season later, and then Buck has kids with the female wolf and all that kind of stuff. Like that stuff is not as interesting as it would have been if, I agree.
And I know, again, I mean, I know the novel is quite a bit different than the movie itself, but it's just the movie, what you see in the movie. I mean, I know there's, some themes there, and the main kind of crux of the story is this love story kind of between Clark Gable and Loretta Young, because she, for most of the movie, believes that her husband is dead. And then kind of at the end, she finds out, oh my gosh, he's not dead. Even though it looks like they kill him. It looks like Mr. Smith's henchmen kill him when they find him in the cabin. But apparently they didn't. They didn't do a very good job of it. So he's still alive. So she gets back with her husband because he's not dead after all. Yeah. But she's clearly in love now with Clark Gable, and he's clearly in love with her. And there's he has a little speech about, we take what we want, and it's kind of like his call of the wild. And then also you've got the dog who hears the call of the wild and ends up running away and having babies with having puppies with the I guess kind of like the wolf that's out in the wilderness and everything. So there's all that kind of going on, but I don't care. Yeah. I want something a little more thrilling to happen. And despite the chemistry of the leads and the charisma of the leads, I just thought this movie was kind of boring.
Yep, I can see that.
To be honest with you.
I can see that for sure.
Yeah, I think I was a little bit harsher on it than you, but I agree 100%. When it gets to the cabin, And it's just
Let's
go, guys. Let's
Yeah.
pick this up.
Yeah,
So
for
yeah,
sure.
I was disappointed with it. And again, I've not seen any adaptation of Call of the Wild, so I don't know how this compares to any of the other ones that have come around. But I'd be interested to watch at least one of the other ones. I don't know about the Harrison Ford one, but well, that one has like a CGI dog, which I think is kind of weird. But
Yeah.
at least they didn't CGI this dog because they couldn't in 1935.
The computers didn't exist.
They-
Computers were people back in
Now, if they did have a
1935.
CGI dog in the 1935 movie, I would be suitably impressed. I'd be like, wow.
George Lucas.
Yeah, he's going to go back and tinker with it. The CGI dog's going to shoot first.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Any other notes on this movie, The Call of the Wild?
Yeah, so one I don't know if I would call it interesting note because it has, well, I'll just say what it is. Clark Gable, kind of like Charlie Chaplin, was married multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, he was married to a lady named Maria Langham, who was not an actress. I think she was just a socialite. I believe she was a Houston, Texas socialite. But he had an affair with Loretta Young while they made this movie, and she got pregnant.
Oh.
And in order to avoid a scandal, the studio kept her out of the public eye while she was pregnant so she wouldn't be seen in public. Then she had the baby in secret, and then she adopted a baby, right? So she adopted her own baby. And so it looked like she was never pregnant. She actually just, she was not around for 9 months. And then, hey, I decided I want to adopt a baby. So she adopted her own daughter, which, again, these kinds of things happen. But what gives that story a negative connotation is that years later, she, according to, I can't remember if it was that daughter or that daughter's child, so her grandchild, said that Loretta Young was actually raped by Clark Gable while this movie went on, and that's how the pregnancy. But I did several searches on the internet to kind of find was it conclusive that happened? Because obviously he was long dead, and Loretta Young was very old at the point where she said that. And there are some people who believe that story. There are other people that say no, that Clark Gable never would have done that. So it's not verified. I mean, obviously it came from Loretta Young's mouth, but it's, again, it's one side of the story. So I'm not making any judgment either way. I just thought I would point that out. However, they did make one more movie together. 15 years after this, they were in a movie, Gable and Young were in a movie called Key to the City. What's his name? Jack Oakey, the guy that played Shorty. Yep. Again, as I mentioned earlier, he appeared in The Great Dictator. Other than that, he definitely appeared in some other films, but never as big a star, obviously, as Clark Gable or Loretta Young. Loretta Young had arguably her greatest success the following decade in the 1940s when she appeared in movies like The Stranger with Orson Welles. She's in The Bishop's Wife with Cary Grant, which is a Christmas time favorite. And she won an Academy Award for The Farmer's Daughter, where she plays a Swedish woman. She also had her own TV show called The Loretta Young Show, appropriately enough. In the early 1950s, all the way up until until 1961, I think, is when that ended. It was like an anthology drama show. She was kind of the host, but she also acted in some of the episodes and stuff like that. Anyway, this movie has multiple adaptations, as I mentioned. The Harrison Ford one came out in 2020. I don't remember how many other ones there are. I didn't write them all down, but I've not seen any of them. Maybe I should get around to seeing them. There is no Rotten Tomatoes critic score for this, but the audience score is 53%, and Leonard Maltin gives it 3 out of 4 stars.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on these Wednesday episodes, we always like to answer a viewer's question, and we figured we'll find one. We find one that is similar to our subject this week, which is about a giant dog named Buck. And there are a lot of movies about different kind of dogs. We have Milo and Otis. We have a sad one, Old Yeller. There's a TV show, Lassie.
Where the red fern grows, another sad one.
So the question is, what are our favorite dog movies? I remember really liking Turner and Hooch as a kid. I think they've remade that on Disney Plus.
Have, yeah.
I have not seen the remake, but I remember really liking that movie with Hooch getting slobber over everything.
Yes. Yeah, and Lassie is a movie as well.
Okay.
There's a couple of movie versions. There's Lassie Come Home. There's an old Lassie. There's a 90s Lassie. There's a movie version of White Fang, again, which is also a Jack London novel.
There was a Beethoven.
Beethoven's second.
Beethoven could be a buck. He's a big Saint Bernard.
Yeah, and Cujo is a Saint Bernard as well.
There you go. Then we also have our 101 Dalmatians in that universe.
Lady and the Tramp.
Lady and the Tramp.
Another animated. Fox and the Hound.
The Scooby-Doos. Scooby, they're not real dogs, but neither are the 101 Dalmatians.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think of all of that, I kind of have
Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Clifford the Big Red Dog. I've not seen that, the new one. I did read the book, though, as a kid. I think a lot of people did. But do you have yours?
I'm going to do a shout out, which is depressing, but it's the Hachi, A Dog's Tale with Richard Gere. That's a sad movie, but it's good. I think that's a Lasse Hallström movie. I guess I could click on it and see. Because he made A Dog's Life, or My Life as a Dog, which is not about a dog. It has that title. Yeah, it's a Lasse Hallström movie.
We have Shiloh and Shiloh Goes West.
Yeah.
I think of all the dog movies that I'm kind of glancing at and looked at really quickly for this thing. My favorite dog movie is actually, I don't know if this is a surprise or not, but it's an animated movie. It's a computer animated movie, and it's Bolt by Disney Animation.
I've never seen that.
I feel like people sleep on this movie a lot.
I did.
Like a lot of people just haven't watched it, but it's really good and really cute. And John Travolta, does a good job of voice acting a dog that thinks he's basically Bolt is a showbiz dog, and he thinks he really has superpowers because in the show he's in, they do all the special effects for him, and so he's kind of like Buzz Lightyear in that way where he's just kind of a little delusional, but it's cute and it's really fun. And I really like Bolt a lot, so I think that's my favorite dog movie. Is Bolt.
Nice. I am going to go with, I guess you could take your pick. The Incredible Journey, which came out in the 1960s, but it's also kind of remade. It's Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey in the 1990s. So either one, I think they're both fairly similar, and they both have 2 dogs and a cat. Because I love dogs and I love cats. So this has it all.
I love it.
It's got 2 dogs and 2 cats. And at least one of them, maybe both movies, I can't tell from the picture. I can't remember what kind of dogs they were, but I know one of the movies is Golden Retriever, and I love Golden Retrievers.
Yeah.
So great.
Isn't one of them like
great
a beagle?
Dogs. Yeah, well, one of them's like a Spuds MacKenzie kind of dog. Yeah, one of them's like a bulldog pup in the 90s one.
Okay.
And then whatever that is.
Oh yeah, that is like a Spuds MacKenzie.
And a Siamese cat.
Yeah.
I love Siamese cats. They're great.
Great.
So Incredible Journey, either one.
Homeward
60s, 90s, Homeward. And there's a Homeward Bound 2 in the 90s as well.
Yeah, I remember liking those movies.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else?
Nope.
All right. Well, let us know what your favorite dog movie is. Is it one we mentioned or is it one that we left off? Like, let us know. Maybe you're screaming at the monitor because we didn't say X dog movie like
Man's Best Friend with Lance Henriksen.
Man's
That's another
Best
like horror movie.
Or
dog movie.
Maybe it's was it Archie and Company or whatever where the dogs dance and sing and stuff?
Sure.
Yeah.
All dogs go to heaven.
That's a really sad dog movie too. Let us know. Leave a comment down below if you're watching us on YouTube or shoot us an email, realshame@gmail.com. We also answer viewers' questions like this sent to that email address. So please send us your viewers' questions. We're running low. We need them. Please, please, please. And that's all I'm going to beg. Please like and subscribe to this show. Please share it. Do all that social media stuff. It really does help. And we really do appreciate that. We're on Instagram. I try not to say this too much, but we're on Instagram @RealShame. Follow us there. We usually try to put the posters of the movies we're reviewing this week on the weekend before so you can have some time to see them before we post them. And stay tuned next week as we watch some movies from Andy's List of Shame. And we'll see you soon, guys.